Okay, so next we're getting into CloudFormation. And CloudFormation is not a service you have to know in depth, but you need to understand how it works and a few features. So this is what I'm going to do in this lecture. So as we know, CloudFormation is to bring the concept of infrastructure as code, IAC, into AWS. The idea is that by writing your infrastructure as code, you can port it across multiple accounts and multiple regions. So you can reuse and quickly redeploy your infrastructure anywhere you want. This is the backbone of the Elastic Beanstalk service, but also the Service Catalog service and the Serverless Application Model framework. So the idea is that it's a low-level tool that other services in AWS may rely on to perform their actions. Overall, it's a must-know service when you're a developer, a sysops, or DevOps, but for the SA Pro exam, you still need to understand a few quirks. So let's go ahead and learn them. Next, how to retain data when your CloudFormation stack is deleted. So sometimes you don't want your resources in CloudFormation to be deleted because you want to retain the data. And by default, everything gets deleted in CloudFormation, but you can define a deletion policy on any resource to control what happens when the CloudFormation template is deleted. So the first one that is extremely obvious is called deletion policy equals retain. In this case, you are specifying which resources you want to preserve or backup in case CloudFormation deletes the stack. To keep a resource, you just specify retain, and it works on any resource or any nested stack. The second one applies only to less resources, which is called deletion policy equals snapshot. So in this case, we're saying, okay, you can delete the underlying resource, but please make a snapshot before you do. So this applies to all the things that can be snapshotted. So EBS volumes, Elasticcache cluster for Redis, Elasticcache replication group, etc., etc. It could be RDS DB instance, RDS DB cluster, a Redshift cluster. So anything that can be snapshotted usually is supported with deletion policy equals snapshot for CloudFormation. And then finally, the default behavior for most resources is delete policy equals delete. And that means that everything is deleted when you delete your CloudFormation stack. But there is an exception. If you're using an RDS DB cluster resources, the default policy is to snapshot. And if you want to delete an S3 bucket through CloudFormation, you need to make sure the bucket is going to be first entirely empty of all its content. Otherwise, you're going to get a failure. But from an exam perspective, remember, you can set a deletion policy to control how CloudFormation deletes or not resources. CloudFormation can do custom resources using Lambda. So the custom resources help you address any of the following use cases. For example, AWS just released this new service, but it is not yet supported by CloudFormation. Or you have an on-premise resource that you would like to manage through CloudFormation. Or you would like to empty an S3 bucket before deleting it. Or you would like to get an AMI ID before applying it in your CloudFormation templates. Or really anything you want. So the idea is that these custom resources in CloudFormation is going to be backed by a Lambda function that you can create, and that Lambda function is going to be responsible for doing whatever you want. Would it be creating a new resource or managing your on-premise resource or emptying your S3 bucket, all these kind of things. And so anytime you create, update, or delete your CloudFormation stack, then the Lambda function will be invoked. And that Lambda function will do, based on what CloudFormation tell it just happened, the Lambda function you have to program will do API calls to whatever you want to manage properly your custom resources. So the idea is, as soon as you need to go a little bit crazy out of the box usage of CloudFormation, you have to use custom resources. Next, we have stack sets. So using stack sets, you can create, update, or delete stacks across multiple accounts and regions within a single operation. So you have two types of accounts for stack sets. You have the administrator account that creates these stack sets, and then the trusted account can create, update, and delete stack instances from these stack sets. So when you update a stack set, and that's the whole power of stack sets, then every associated stack instances is going to be updated through all the accounts and all the regions. So this gives you one way to manage stacks across multiple accounts and multiple regions. There's also one last feature you need to know about, which is called automatic deployments. So in case you're using AWS organization, then you can automatically deploy a stack set to new account. And that is extremely powerful to provision whatever you want as a minimal configuration of a new account. So CloudFormation stack sets, again, as an admin account, and then the same stack can be deployed either in account A in two different regions or account B a separate account. And remember the automatic deployment feature. Next, we have Drift. So what is Drift? Well, we know that we can create infrastructure using CloudFormation, but it doesn't protect against manual configuration changes of your CloudFormation resources. And therefore, your resources, if they change configuration, we call them drift. So how to know whether or not they have drifted? Well, you can use CloudFormation Drift. A CloudFormation Drift is going to evaluate all your resources and have a look at the configuration provided by CloudFormation and maybe the actual configuration after someone modified it manually. And then there's going to be a comparison algorithm, and then automatically it will tell you, well, these resources have drifted. So this can be detected on an entire stack or individual resources within a stack. Okay, so there's just one template you need to know about. It's the integration of Secrets Manager and CloudFormation. So here's what the template is. So in the first part of the template, we generate a secret from Secrets Manager. In the second part of the template, you use a reference, a sub-function to find the secret and pass it into your RDS database instance, okay? So this is how you inject the secret, the password just created, into the instance of RDS. And then finally, the last part is to create a secret target attachment to link the secret to the RDS database instance. And therefore, when the secret rotates, so will the password in the RDS database. Then we have resource imports for CloudFormation. So this allows you to import existing resources that you've created in AWS outside of CloudFormation into existing or new CloudFormation stacks. So you don't need to actually delete and recreate the resources as part of a new CloudFormation stack. You can just import them. So during the import operation, you will need to create a template that describes exactly the entire stack. That means the original stack resources and the target resources to import. You will also make sure that every target resource has a unique identifier. For example, for S3 buckets, you need to clearly outline the name of the bucket, so the bucket name. So let's say we have a S3 bucket, my bucket, and we want to implement it and import it into a stack. So we're going to create this template with the resources to import and outline exactly the S3 bucket, including its name. Then we'll import resources into CloudFormation, which is going to create a stack. And this stack will just include that already existing S3 bucket into the stack resources and will be managed then through CloudFormation. But it's actually not going to go and delete and recreate that resource for you. It's just going to import it. So each resource you import, you must define as well a deletion policy with any value and an identifier. And you cannot, of course, import the same resources into multiple stacks. So that's it for this lecture. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture.